The ones that will take care of their children. Shouldn't the Child Rights Act cover them? That, well, you find a child here who you can't tell.
We're sent to a specific kind of education. Otherwise, it's a Quranic school or institution that government itself is running. And then if that be the case in the north, they should hand them over as soon as they become maybe these loafers, as it were, or waves. Now, the government should take them on. But if government does not run that kind of school, it is completely aloof from their situation. However, if the social welfare of any state finds any child maybe on the streets and helpless and nothing, they can do anything. And if they decide to rein in that person and then start training the person, fine. But if they don't, fine. But my problem is their entry into the South. My problem, I must tell you, is their entry into the South. Like you now confirm.
Is it not part of Nigeria?
I'm coming. I will explain myself.
No, the question is the South. You don't have a problem if they're entering parts of the North, but you have a problem if they're entering parts of the South.
You know why?
So I asked, is South not part of Nigeria?
South is Nigeria, but a Nigeria that runs a different system. For instance, if not as you told me now that there are some Islamic clerics in the South, then I would have been wondering if we are following the methodology of that, they are sent to an Islamic cleric. Now, I am asking, even right now, let's even agree that there are some of them in the South, but certainly not the number in the North. Now, if they are sent to these people in the South, my problem is that the tutelage, doesn't it have a terminal date? And if it does,
Emmanuel, we've mentioned this earlier, that if it were supposed to have, it is not what we see on ground.
Okay. That maybe the problem has gone out of gear. And that's why I said it's a convoluted problem.
Yes, so when it comes to the South now, where's the problem?
Now, the problem for me, I thought, if not, I said, well, they push it off the way it should be. As soon as you finish your education, you go back to your parents. But now that it's not done that way, and you see that the areas where the concentration of them are more have made state government say, send them back by the bandwagon mentality of Nigeria.
All right. Got your thoughts on that, Emmanuel? 5:50 in a minute.
Yes, the Amajiri system is actually a system, and it's a system of Islamic education in Nigeria, whereby parents leave their parental responsibilities, as the female ones are called Amajira, but that of the female is not very popular because the parents protect the females. So they now give these children out to other parts of the country where malams that train these children on Islamic education are. In Nigeria today, we have about 9.7 million Amajiri children on the streets. And out of that number, Nigeria has 13.5 million out-of-school children. And out of which, Amajiri constitute 72% of the total number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, according to the UNICEF. So, they are distributed. They are basically supposed to be in Islamic states, especially where they have elements of, Sharia running. But then you have them in the 36 states of the federation, where parents, the moment they just grow, they distribute them to those areas. They are actually supposed to be in a particular building where you have the imams teaching them, the malams teaching them. And then what they do as their local crafts or as their break time is to go on the street to beg for food and money, which they come back and kick back some to their imams in the teaching house, because they cannot care for their well-being. That responsibility that their parents...
Originally, nope, they're not supposed to go out and beg for food. Originally, they're not supposed to step out. The money that is given to the malams as zakat is where the kids are supposed to feed from. So it is that idea of zakat where you give alms to the mosque, or you give alms to the imam, that transferred to you're giving the alms directly to the children. But originally, they're not even supposed to go out and beg for food.
Are they getting it in Nigeria? Even in northern states of the country, the zakat is not being given. So they go on the street now to survive. And because they go on the street, they are prone to homosexuality as males. They are prone to being recruited for destructive tendencies. They are prone to theft should they not be able to meet up something to eat. They are exposed to a lot of dangers on the street. Now we have had, including diseases like the COVID-19, malaria, and what have you on the street. They are exposed to those things. Now we have had this threatening disease across the country. State governments have started, moving them from their states to their state of origin. Like the writer said, which state are you sending them to? A lot of the children themselves don't even know the state they come from. They don't know because we don't have that record that is given to them the moment they grow. If you look at the ages of some of these children, some of them are below 10. Some of them are just a little above 10. And then from these children being moved away. Now, talking about the Child Right Act, I belong to a network of acts. But in this case, you are talking about child or children that you can actually see their parents. But in this case, you don't really see the parents of these children. So a lot of people are against moving these children to their state of origin. To me, I don't see the Amajiri system as a national children corps, like we have the National Youth Corps. I don't see the Amajiri system backed by a law enacted by the National Assembly. There, like we have the national by a law, an act of parliament. Therefore, I don't see their responsibility falling squarely on state government across the country, even those in their home states, because it's not a national program. So when we face this kind of challenge, the best that the state governments are supposed to do is to look at the Amajiri schools that they attend to get this education. If it is sufficient for them to live in there, they keep them there, take their statistics, do a bit in the country. But whereby we don't have that system, it becomes a problem. I know quite well that the former president of this country have this kind of system, they are moved there. So the argument that state government are supposed to take care of them, I don't really support that idea. Right. Despite the fact that we have the Child Protection Act, Child Right Act in operation.
Okay, even though you agree that the Child Right operation is active, but you don't think that it should be done.
I don't think it should be done on this case.
Fine face to thank you so much. I love it, man. Let's get to you. Mano, why do you throw in the JP there?
No, you can't miss that.
All right, let's get to you.
Annie, this practice is a historical anachronism that should be jettisoned in this 21st century through legislation. You see, and that kind of practice can only thrive in a feudal system. Even as this discussion was going on, I had to kind of cast my mind back. 86. I was also in Sokoto for my youth service, Kara Namoda. I was in Kano. And this thing they call Amajiri system, I've seen it. How it is being run, the info is that is even around it. They are off to the street. They'll gather in one Alhaji's gate. Each and promoted this thing. These are the things we'll now begin to interrogate and compare, make a kind of comparative this thing, whether this is a kind of a universal people to breed like rat and send them to different parts of the areas abandoned by parents. And the Jonathan administration came up with.